You're watching Crack the Code. Boom shakalaka.
Welcome, everybody. This is Crack the Code. I am Tayamu Denku. That's my homie Roman. And tonight's special guest, the man himself, Gerald Rivers in the house. What's going on, man?
What's up? Gerald C. Rivers, just happy to be here with you, man. All good. All good in the neighborhood.
Yeah, man. You actually are the voice actor of two of my favorite all-time fighting games. Bison in the Street Fighter series and Jax in the Mortal Kombat series, and that is awesome, man. I love that.
I kind of like it too. I mean, there are a few more, but if those are your favorites,
those are my
good.
favorites.
Okay.
Those are my favorite ones. I do know you have done a ton of things, but those are my two favorite things. Because I love fighting games, and those are my two top fighting games, I guess. Yeah.
Those are OGs. Those are old school games now. Those are the ones that have been around for a while that folks are still playing, ironically enough, and they're still producing new versions. I think the last Street Fighter was 6, but there have been all kinds of stuff in between. There was Street Fighter versus Tekken and Street Fighter versus a bunch of different sort of offshoots and a Super Street Fighter and all good. I'm just glad people still like them.
Yeah, how did you get approached, or did you audition for the Street Fighter series? Because you've been part of it since Street Fighter 4, right?
I don't remember, but it's been over 10 years that I've been, and it's kind of a funny story. Of course, I was working as a voiceover actor, but I wasn't getting as much work as I might have liked. And as the story goes, I usually have a house big enough to accommodate some of my other friends who are musicians mostly, who are out of work. And so a good friend of mine, Josh Phillips, was fighting with this girl, and he needed a place to crash for a while, and he crashed at my place, and then his car was messed up, and he needed a ride to an audition. I gave him a ride, and it was SoCal. It was hot. I didn't want to sit in my car. I sat in the lobby and was inappropriately on my phone. And the director, Jonathan Klein, came out in the lobby and heard me and said, "Are you a voice actor?" And I said, "Well, of course." And he said, "I want you to read something for me." And I read M. Bison and have been doing M. Bison ever since. I was literally in the right place at the right time, probably doing the wrong thing. But like I tell people, it's when preparation meets opportunity. So I was ready, and he gave me a shot, and who knew it was going to lead to this well over a decade later. But that's how that's how M. Bison evolved. I mean, I just happened to be there on the day that he was holding some auditions for some other things. And Jonathan Klein runs New Generation Pictures. And I think he grew up into the graphic novels and learning Japanese and anime, and learned to speak Japanese and read Japanese, and went back and forth to visit a couple of times, and eventually secured a bunch of contracts with partners to translate these Japanese games into English. And it just so happened that this was one of the bigger ones that he had, and he's still doing it. I was just with him last year recording new stuff for Street Fighter.
That's tight, man. Were you a gamer growing up? Did you play Street Fighter growing up?
I did play Street Fighter growing up. Ironically enough, I liked the big guy. He was a big Japanese guy.
E Honda.
That's the one, E Honda.
Yep.
I love me some E Honda. He could just and so we hated M. Bison growing up when we were playing it, because he was the big boss, and there wasn't a lot of language back then. It was mainly just playing the game, and you heard a lot of grunting and whatnot. So when I got a chance to give him a voice, I already had plenty of sort of backstory and history for myself, and there was a popular Japanese voice actor, and our voices are similar. He did the original Japanese, and I think this is the first one in the. I think he was doing some other stuff, but I don't think he did the last version of Street Fighter. But he had been doing all of the others, and he laid down a voice print in Japanese because a lot of people don't know this. These games are usually popular in Japan, in Asia, and then they come here, and we literally are just translating. And in many cases, we're doing a lip flap match. So the Japanese and the English don't always match up exactly. Like they can have a few sounds that represent a much longer phrase or thought or piece of information, and vice versa, something that sounds very long that represents something very small in English. So there is a unique skill in being able to listen to the Japanese and then watch the video and then make it match to make it look like those words are coming out of that character's mouth because the picture is already set. We've got to match the picture.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Japanese to American transition of the games. I know when we were at the gaming classic where we met you at, um, me and Roman sat down. We played this Japanese tank game,
Uh huh.
and it was like it was like nothing I've ever played before. To be honest, like it was like you remember Roman that game that we played,
Oh yeah, yeah, I
and
remember that.
it was like it's like you pick these. I don't even remember the name of the game, but you pick like these tanks.
Mm-hmm.
You drive the tanks around, and you're trying to shoot all the other tanks that are playing. And there's like these just goofy like Japanese like characters in the tanks that you could pick, and then they like say crazy stuff. I clearly I don't know what they were saying, but yeah, it's just yeah, it's crazy how many of those games never do make it over here, and
Right.
then the ones that do make it over here that become popular here. Um,
There was a subwoofer in the seat too. I don't know if you forgot. Remember that
oh
sub
yeah,
that would hit every time you would shoot the cannon. You just
Oh wow.
that was crazy.
yeah,
That
it
was
was
fun though.
yeah, it was crazy, man. Roman, you got something?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask too if you were ever a fan of the Street Fighter series before you picked up the character, and and just to see if you answered both of my questions already, and if you heard the actual Japanese actor and kind of modeled M. Bison after that character, after that voice, or I mean, I can definitely tell it's your own
Yeah, I
creation
mean
though.
there was
So
certainly what we'll describe as a voice print for the character, but my voice sits a little lower in terms of the register than the original Japanese. But there was a timbre and a gravel and a what we describe as a gravitas in the original Japanese that I totally identified with. I go, oh, that's where this character lives in that little pocket
okay,
that's that's bent on taking over the world, which is like just a fun space to be. I have no desire to take over the world. I'm having a rough enough time with my little corner right here, and just the things that I'm handling. So that's what an exciting opportunity to explore somebody so different from me, and again to for me as an actor, because I'm an actor first. I have to find some redeeming qualities in this guy. He's not just a flat, one dimensional bad guy. Something has happened to this man that has led him. And the graphic novels provide all of the backstory you would ever need, and the temple and the battles and the whatnot, and the fact that they keep coming up with different storylines to keep moving the story forward, all based on the original text, is incredible.
Yeah, man.
yeah, I see with your acting background too that you they say that you are Shakespearean trained. I,
I am a classically trained Shakespearean actor, and I've worked at several Shakespeare companies around the country in Georgia, and I'm a member of a company now called the Will Gear Theatricum Botanicum, and I've been doing Shakespeare with that company for 30 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just got cast in another show. Ironically, they're doing Treasure Island, and I'm
Oh,
playing the character of Long John Silver. So I'm playing
oh, cool.
a pirate. But yeah, I grew up in Compton and went to the original, my first sort of acting school was a conservatory in South Central called Sheenway. And they really they wet my whistle enough, even though I was still in the hood and involved in various extracurricular activity. The woman who ran the program, she was like, "How are you paying for your classes?" And I was like, "You don't need to worry about that. I'm hustling. I'm doing what I need," because she knew my folks didn't have enough money. And eventually she said, "I'm going to scholarship your classes because I don't want you out here hustling to pay for this. I just want you to have this experience." Then went to college and went to LACC, LA City College here where I started, and they have a theater academy that was very specifically geared towards actors going into the business. Some of the folks that came out of there include Charlton Heston and Morgan Freeman. So it was a program that gave you a really solid foundation. And then I went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, which is where Martin Luther King went to school. It is the only predominantly black, all male institution of higher learning in the Western Hemisphere, and expanded my repertoire, my understanding of theater and Shakespeare more there. And then right out of college, went to work at a professional theater. And the next year I was working at a Shakespeare company.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's what's up, man. Speaking of Moorhead and Martin Luther King, it's said that you uh, portray Martin Luther King a lot and do speeches of his a lot.
I do. Probably when I was 17, I got my first professional tour. It was a show
Hmm.
called Voices, Voices of America. And it had various voices from the American canon of history, if you will. Some black, some white, but enough sort of rich, varied history. And one of the characters in the show is Martin Luther King. Now, I'm 60. When I was coming up, if you wanted to be an actor, you had to sing, dance, and act. And so I was in the chorus and I was singing and dancing and, shucking and jiving a little bit and having a good time. But I was 17, man. I was fresh out of high school and I was on tour. And another actor was playing Martin Luther King, but he was also playing Malcolm X and I think Frederick Douglass. And I was like, this dude don't need all of that. You know what I mean? If I take one from him, he still has a nice role in the show. And back in the day, you could go to the producers, the directors, and say, "Hey, you know what? I can sing that song, or I can dance that number, or I can do that monologue or that speech better and lift the show." Now, it's a bold move because if you audition and you don't get it, it's like you're almost insulting the actor who has that role. But I prepared for it. My grandmother had some record albums from Martin Luther King. My family had talked about Martin Luther King and who he was and what he meant to not only us as a people, but to my family in particular. So I did the background, the research, the study that actors do preparing for a character, and found out that I could hit his register. And then growing up as a young boy in the Baptist church, I could also hear the cadence of a Baptist minister. So, man, I auditioned, the director came out, and he was literally like, "Change the program, change the program. We got a new Martin Luther King." And that launched this, this thing, which I had no idea would still be going on, some 40, 50 years later. Because I went on tour and I was in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Detroit, I think Dallas. Anyway, I came back and my mom was like, "You were on probation. You were in trouble. How is it that you go from being threatened to be incarcerated to being off Broadway in some show and you're 17 years old?" And I said, "I was doing the thing. I was studying and I played Martin Luther King, and she said, I tell you what, you come back to my church and you do your Martin Luther King speech at the church. And I came back, and at that point, it was just a piece of the I Have a Dream speech. So I did it at the church in Compton, where my mom still goes to church to this day, and the Compton librarian was there. And she was like, oh my God, would you do this at the library? And I was like, okay. Did it at the library, and the Cub Scout master was there. Had me come to the Boy Scout Jamboree that was in Compton and did it there. And then different churches and schools, and kind of they told two friends, and so then of course I had to learn, first of all, that entire speech and then several other speeches. And by now I probably got 30, 40 speeches, sermons fully committed to memory verbatim. And I speak all over the place. And I had a chance to meet Martin Luther King's family and his friends and his wife and his kids and the people that marched with him. So all of that stuff informed even deeper my understanding of who this man and this person was. And kind of the irony is it was really transformational for me as a person, because here I'm from Compton, and I had some ideas about violence and retaliation, that if you say these words thousands of times the way that I have, eventually it drops into your psyche and it begins to change and affect who you are. So here I think I'm playing him, and ultimately he was playing me. And then before I knew it, I was volunteering, I was working with kids, I'm feeding the homeless, I was part of prison ministries, going into prisons and visit. And I've never been in a situation where his words were not appreciated. And you would think that somebody would be like, ah, that's old. But when you hear it and it sounds like it's in real time, I think it cuts to the core. It does something to you. I'll share this, and you'll excuse me for babbling on. I began to partner with various artists, violinists, saxophone players, vocalists, soloists, rappers, hip hoppers, um, visual artists, and I eventually worked with a dude named Cal Bennett, who's an incredible saxophone player that played on Isaac Hayes' Shaft album, the original. That's my boy, Cal Bennett. And I took him to Atlanta with me, and we were trying to figure out what is it about this king and his resonance that like speaks to people all over the place. And he had a saxophone that was once played by a very famous older saxophone player. And he said, you know what it is? He speaks when he makes a point in an F sharp. So we like got on the thing, he pulled out his little meter and reader and was like, man, he was like, that's an F sharp. And King had this innate ability to like speak to people, so that if you were the janitor or a politician or a college professor or a farmer, it just cut through to who you are as a human. And it did that for me. I was in the prison one time, and they were concerned, like, are these dudes in prison going to be into some Martin Luther King, especially if they're not all black, they're white, they're Latin, they're especially the white guys. And I met a dude, he had a long beard, looked like ZZ Top. And he just felt like he was like the ultimate racist and hater. And he came in and sat through the session. We had a little meditation, and then I got up to speak as Martin Luther King. When we were done, this dude had tears in his eyes, and he approached me. And you're not supposed to be able to touch cats when they're locked up because you run the risk of passing them something. But he was so moved that the guards let him come and give me like a big ass bear hug. And then what he told me, he said, I want to apologize. And I said, for what? He said, man, I think my father had something to do with Martin Luther King's assassination. And he said, I want to stand in my father's place. And he was like, you just stood and made me feel like Martin Luther King was here. And I just want to say, I'm sorry. And all I could do is just receive that. So as you can imagine, over the years, I met all kinds of people across the country, out of the country, Bermuda, Canada, Mexico, where you would think, or do these people know about this dude? But when you hear more than the I have a dream speech, how deep this cat was and how multi-layered and faceted he was as a philosopher and as a prophet, you can't help but be inspired and moved. It really doesn't matter. And so I keep saying I'll do it for as long as people want to hear it. And I did an interview in my 20s, and the article ended by saying that could be a long time. I just had no idea that I would still be doing that.
Yeah.
I know it's a
Man.
long answer, but
Ah.
that's a huge part of my
Yeah.
life. Do you know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And it affects the work that I do outside, and it's just a great character to have. And then to have this wonderful juxtaposition of being able to play Martin Luther King and M. Bison and X Death and some of the other big bosses that I have the chance to play is just cool for me.
Yeah, man. So you also like to do a lot of work in the community, like building up the community, working in schools,
Yeah.
preventative violence.
So I have on this T-shirt. It says "Peace Players," and the motto is "Peace, Love, and Positivity." So I run a program in middle schools called the Peace Players. So I'm teaching these kids West African hand drumming, and they're playing djembe and sometimes junjuns, and so they get into it because in middle school they need an outlet for like the rage and the hormones and all the stuff that's going on. So they learn to play, and not just black kids, but white kids and Latin kids and Asian kids, and they can play. I mean, once you give them, but then they become intrigued in the program, and then I say, all right, if you want to go out and play with me, your grades got to be right, and you got to promote these ideals of peace, love, and positivity. And I get a little street cred because I'm in Bison. They're like, oh my God, this is the dude from the video games, and if he wants us to do something, we're going to do it. And so the program's been around 15 years. It involves several different middle schools. And just one example, a couple of weeks ago, the kids went to Malibu, which is a beautiful beach here in Southern California, to play for special needs kids who
Mm.
are getting surf therapy. So these kids are blind, they have autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome, they're paralyzed, you name it, but they're learning to surf. Some of them are surfing with their seeing eye dog. And so what we do is we sit on the beach while they're surfing and we drum for them. And we've been told that it calms them. When they're a little nervous, they can hear these drums on the beach and they're then dancing on their surfboards. And then when they come to shore, we let them sit in and play with us. So that's we play at senior centers. We play at cancer centers. Some patients are getting their chemo and their radiation, and these kids are drumming for them, and these drums, they just cut through, and you can feel them and hear them because it's ancient and goes back. So that's one of the things that I'm involved in. I run the Peace Player program,
Mm.
and those kids go on to college and go on to be leaders. We played a No Kings rally last month, and that's just what we do. We
Yeah,
just
man. That's
give it
beautiful.
forward. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Roman, you got something?
Hey, that's an interesting piece of artwork you have behind you. Could you give a little story to that?
Sure, my son is the artist, and there's several pieces of his
Cool.
artwork all around my house. But that one, we were doing a program at Santa Monica College called Bridges some years ago, and I was involved with helping some kids be speakers and rappers. And one of the girls, oh God, I can't think of her name right now, but she went on to have a career in the industry. But because we were sponsoring the event, we needed some artwork that we wanted large hanging panels in the venue. And my son came up with these just based on the theme of bridges. And
Oh, okay.
Onyx was there, and a bunch of other rappers were there to
Oh
inspire these
snap!
kids. And the woman who helped Tupac, she lives here in LA and still runs like a poetry rap program for kids.
Oh, okay.
And he was one, and she knew his mom and was one of his early mentors. And she still, but that was from when we were with Onyx and a couple of other nice, sweet rappers of the day, and they all came to inspire those kids. And then the other one, that's my son too. I got a bunch of MLK stuff around the house, and he's grown now, but he'll still
Yeah,
do some stuff for Pops from time to time.
Oh,
that's what's
cool.
up, man. I'm actually on Onyx's label. That's crazy that you mentioned him.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, 100 Mad. Like I got songs with Onyx, like
Oh
Fredro,
nice.
Sticky. I actually have songs with all three of them before Sonny Caesar actually left the group.
Huh.
But yeah, it's crazy you mentioned them
Yeah, but
because
he asked me about that
it's just
picture. That's what it
random. It's just
is.
random. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, the fact that he was willing to come out to a high school and just be present for these kids and to inspire them and to be, one of the voices that was promoting this art form. Do you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
giving kids an outlet to talk about their situations. I did another, there's a book, it was a kid's book called Pachamama's Pajamas, and it was teaching kids about the environment. And so they had a bunch of actors and rappers on it. And I'm on there with Mos Def and Qualib Tali, but it's called Pachamamas. And it's still out now. It didn't do as well as they had hoped, but it wound up in a bunch of educational institutions where we all play animals in the forest. And the
Mm,
story goes the little girl is wearing pajamas that has animals on them, and when she goes to sleep, those animals come to life and teach her about the environment.
that's what's up, man. Before we jump back into speaking on video games, I just wanted to touch base. Growing up in Compton, did you ever randomly run into any of the um, rappers by chance that blew up from out there?
No, and here's why. I went away to college at Morehouse. So while I was at Morehouse
Is
in
mm,
the late 80s is when they blew up. So when I would come home for the summer, uh my brothers would have cassette tapes because these cats were selling tapes out of their out of the trunk of their car. And everybody had these cassette tapes before they blew up. And I was listening to it and I was like, what the? Because they were spitting real talk about what was happening in the streets of Compton. And for us, nobody had ever done that before. And it was almost frightening and intimidated. Like, don't tell them all the secrets. You know what I mean? Don't expose the whole hood to everybody. We got game over here. People still out here in these streets. Hold that down a little bit. So I never actually ran into them because I was on game trying to get my education business straight. Because at one point I thought I wanted to be a rapper. I had a rap name. I was the one and only wise old man, and I was spitting knowledge before it was cool to do that.
mm,
But I never blew up because I had all these other interests, and the cats that were really doing it, they were in it all the time. They had committed themselves to that. I remember scratching. There was a dude in Compton called Mixmaster Spade, and he was the first person that I ever heard do that. And initially, people were like, "He's messing up the records. He's gonna ruin all of the vinyl doing that." And who knew that that was gonna blow up in the way that it did? But Compton was it was a breeding ground for creativity and art and expression and a way to get out. So you got folks like the Williams sisters. You got the game is out of Compton, and of course they not like us. Kendrick Lamar. I mean, those cats. They grew up in that environment that was like it was like a petri dish. It was like a breeding ground. If you wanted to be down and you weren't afraid of failure or death, then you could do well. You could survive. You could get
Mm.
over. You could look at the situation and analyze it. And I'll share this with you. And I know we're gonna get back to the other stuff. Last Christmas, I visited London, England, and I spent a week in London and went and saw some theater there. Some friends of mine knew Bryan Cranston, who was in a production of All My Sons, and we saw some Shakespeare, and we went to the Shakespeare's birthplace where he was born and raised. And we went to the English countryside in a place called the Cotswolds, and we drove by a sign that said Little Compton and Long Compton, and I was like, hold up, whatever that is, we have to go and see what that's about. So we followed these signs. We wound up in Little Compton and discovered that that's where the name for Compton originally comes from. It comes from some
Oh,
dude who was in England. So the first Compton was, he was a playmate of King Henry VIII, and he grew up and fought in the king's army, and the king gave him territory and knighted him, and then he had various territory, and one of these territories was this Little Compton and Long Compton. Here's the irony: Little Compton was a place where they believed witches were. So it was people who were sort of outcast, who were living in a very small community, minding their own business with their own practices and rituals. So much so they had a, was like a Stonehenge, a stone circle, 6 foot tall stones in a perfect circle on a mountaintop, where they believed that they would hold rituals and whatnot. So when the king's army discovered that and wanted to take over Compton, they said, "You got to take them stones down." And the king's army, they believe, was turned to stone. That's the myth, is what happened, and they left them alone. And they went up there and tried to take the cornerstone that was the entryway to this portal that still stands today, and they dragged the biggest stone down the hill, and we're going to use it as a bridge over a body of water. And every time they set it up, it would topple over. The story goes that it took 10 horses to drag that stone down the hill. Once they realized it was cursed and they better leave it alone, it only took one horse to carry it back up the hill and set it back into its original place. But one of the Compton descendants came to America and eventually wound up in Northern California and couldn't hang too much competition. And he went south and stopped in Compton and established Compton in 1888. And it was an all white community. And Compton, that's my hood. That's those my people. My people still live there. Compton was known as the hub city because it was the only city that touched on 8 or 9 different cities around it. It was the original farmers market, and farms were all over Compton. That's what Mr. Compton came down and established a place called Richland Farms, and people would come from far and near, and they produced produce and farm goods for much of Southern California. And then you had black folks who moved to Compton to escape the racism of the South, and then the white folks wouldn't do business with the black farmers. And the black farmers eventually lost their farms, they dried up, and they replaced it with factories, a rubber factory, plants and whatnot. And that's when they decided they didn't want us to even have those jobs. So they
Mm.
took all of the money out of the hood, and that's when it went down. It was once a beautiful, thriving community, first farming, and then agriculture, and then manufacturing and plants. There was a big rubber plant, a Goodyear tire plant was right down the street from Compton, so everybody could get a job. And then they were like, nah, we don't want the brothers to have all that. And once they took all of the resources out, Compton became an economic desert. And so folks started figuring out other ways to get ahead. And they came up with game. But I was just in Compton. Dr. Dre just rebuilt Compton High School and gave
Mm.
them a state of the art recording studio on the high school campus.
Oh, that's
oh wow.
super dope.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I'm soaking this all in right, man. I feel like I'm learning all this stuff,
I'm an
man.
old man, so you're getting a history lesson too, guys.
Yeah, man. How so being all right, so let me go back to the games real quick. So
Uh-huh.
being M Bison and Jax, how do you feel about the new movies that are happening right now? Have you seen the new Mortal Kombat's or the are
No.
you do you plan on seeing the Street Fighter movie?
I will see the Street Fighter movie, and I only did one of the MKs, and I think it was 9. And I don't know that they translate as well to the big screen and live action. The only person that was really recognized for his work as M Bison on screen was Raul Julia, and it was in a way his claim to fame, and he sort of put a little stamp on it, but it was one of the last things that he really got a chance to do of any significance. And so that's what makes it sort of iconic and less about the film itself. I think the graphic novel is so deep and so detailed that when you try, I mean, now we're at a different age in terms of technology, but when you try to translated to the big screen, competing with all the stuff that's out there, I think it's tough. I think it's a tough, that's just my opinion. I think it's a tough sell because the marketplace is filled with so much competition
Mm,
for stuff that's out there. And, you got all the Marvel movies, and it's a different world now. So I'm not really into the big films
yeah.
because I think ironically, the smaller video game platforms offers something to the little guy gamer consumer. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that doesn't always translate as the same person who's going to the movies because they will go, but this is for them, and I feel like this is for them. I don't think when they're making these big films that's really for the gamers. So, for example, I did the movie Wreck It Ralph,
Yep.
and M.
Cool.
Bison was in Wreck It Ralph. And I went to Disney and recorded days worth of dialogue because I thought, oh my, it's going to be huge. And all over LA, there were M. Bison billboards, and he was like at the center. I have a little piece, I don't know if you guys can see it. I have one that's still in my room. Hold on. Can you guys see that?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were
Oh, that's
light
cool.
there were life-size billboards all over LA and Hollywood for Wreck-It Ralph, and most of them featured M. Bison. However, when the movie came out, he was in like one or two scenes. It really wasn't about him. So they played us in a way. They used these video game characters to help sell the film, but in the end, it wasn't about them. And I think what happened was, this is just my opinion, I don't know. They recorded a bunch of stuff because the original idea was that the video game characters were going to come to Ralph's aid and save the day. And at some point, the Disney and the corporate structure got involved and was like, maybe they didn't want to pay all the rights and royalties for all the other stuff, or they had concerns, and other people were like, no, we've got to involve some other stuff. So that sort of that affects my thoughts about these things going to the big screen because they'll use the video game characters to sell it to the gamers, and
Mm,
then they'll go to the movies and realize, one, it's different, and two, it's not even about us. It's just a little bit of that. One was a huge bait and switch for a lot of people who thought
mm,
M. Bison was going to be huge in this film, and he's literally in one or two scenes. I mean, he has
yeah.
an iconic line in the movie where he says, "You're not going turbo, are you?" And that's like a seed for what happens later. But if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't even pick that up in that early scene.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was actually going to ask you what it was like working with Disney, but you kind of broke down how that went. And then you also did Lion's Guard.
It's called The Lion Guard. It was a
Yeah.
sequel to The Lion King. So Simba was now king, and his son Kion was in charge of the Lion Guard. And in an effort to involve other animals, the lion guard all of a sudden didn't just consist of the lions. He had a buddy who was a hippo, he had another buddy who was a cheetah, and they made up the protectors of the pride, and they were like kids. And again, it was one of those situations with Disney. I'm not trying to badmouth Disney because they do lots of stuff, but for they call me in for the lion guard, and there was a character, Janja, I think was his name, and he was going to be the nemesis to Kion, to Simba's son, because the hyenas were basically gone. So they needed a new leader of the hyenas, and Jeremy Irons played it in the film. And I went in and I gave them, hyena angry, and they loved it. But then they came back and said, "Well, can you do it a little less intimidating, maybe even a little funny, a little silly?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll do whatever you want me to do." I came back and did that. Ultimately, what happened is every time, and I didn't learn this until later, they played me against Kion, who was an actual teenager. There was no way that even vocally that kid was going to defeat me. Do you know what I mean? Because I have all this gravitas and depth and Shakespeare and M. Bison, and I'm bringing all of that to the party. And here's a child who doesn't have the life experience, and I had a hard time sort of extracting all of that to make it cheesy and
Hmm.
appropriate, so that one. And so it's so funny, they call me in like 4 or 5 times. They call me in for the initial audition, and then the callback, then you get in this business, then you go back for the director, then you go back for the producers, then you go back for the network, and it's just like you keep calling me back, but you're not offering me a job. So when Wreck-It Ralph came along, my agent called and said, "Disney's calling." I'm not going back. It's like they've heard me 5 times, and if they don't, and she was like, "Chill, they're offering you a job." I was like, "Okay, then I'll go back." And so then ultimately, I wound up with them both for Disney, and both I think were recorded at Disney, and Wreck-It Ralph did well internationally, but I did one line for an ADR just to cover Morris Chestnut in the film Identity Thief,
Hmm.
which did not do as well, wasn't nominated for an Academy Award, didn't have all the international success. But I made more money for one line in Identity Thief that nobody even knows was me than I did for this Academy Award nominated Wreck-It Ralph project. And then when they came back for Wreck-It Ralph 2, I thought, oh, maybe they're going to pull some of the stuff off the editing room floor for Wreck-It Ralph 2, but then the shift moved to the internet, and you'll just see M. Bison like walk by in one scene, but there's not much acknowledgement of him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. I remember. I remember that. Because I have young daughters. I've seen both of those movies.
yeah.
But yeah, Roman, you got something?
No, I do think that that is interesting though that you mentioned that about the use of the video game characters because I remember when that movie, the Wreck-It Ralph movie was first announced, they were showing all that, and
Yeah.
as a gamer, we were just excited because we saw all these different characters. Like, wait, what kind of movie could this possibly even be? If I just knew it would be an impossible movie if they had all those characters like that consistently throughout a movie. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And then it just boiled down to just one character. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
that's very
Gotta wreck
interesting.
it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So real quick, so you haven't seen either of the newest Mortal Kombat movies. You haven't seen either one of
I
those?
have not. I have
So
not.
so okay, so huge. Okay, so I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan. I'm probably Mortal Kombat and then Street Fighter. Like I
Yeah.
started in Street Fighter. Like I remember playing the arcade. Like Ryu was like
Uh huh.
my go-to. Like Hadouken, Shoryuken all day. But 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 then when Mortal Kombat came out, I gravitated towards that, and now I saw both the movies. I just recently saw part two, and those are good.
Are they?
The transition actually is really good. Like
I
like
think Mortal Kombat may translate a little better than Street Fighter because Mortal Kombat, even for a video game, when it came out, it was cutting edge in terms of the level of graphic violence. Like
mm,
I mean, it was like when I did Mortal Kombat, there was one voice thing where they said the character just reached through a brick wall and grabbed the heart out of your chest and is standing there with your heart pumping in his hand. And they were like, and now we need a sound that goes with that. It was like, oh, great. But nobody else had really done that kind of like graphic intense. And I think that made it more interesting in terms of how are they going to handle that in a live action film. Whereas Street Fighter felt like it was based around Shadowloo and a competition versus all the other things that were going on. But now
yeah.
you've got me intrigued, so I'm going to go check them out. I mean, I have all the streaming stuff and I have access to movies I'm probably not supposed to have access to, so I will check them out.
So I actually follow a streamer that's huge Mortal Kombat dude, and he breaks down stuff all the time. And I was watching his breakdown actually today, where he was talking about if it's gonna gross enough, because supposedly they have to get to
Yeah,
150 million, because so they had an $80 million budget.
right.
They have to get to 150 million for them to green light Mortal Kombat 3. And I think they're
Hmm.
like right there
Oh, wow.
right now. And it's like right on the cusp of greenlighting part 3, but then he goes into talking about how it's a long way it came, because we came from the more natural effects of the first Mortal Kombat
Hmm.
film from 95, where it's okay. Like it was the start, right?
Yeah.
And then they gave us Annihilation, and that was terrible. That was
Oh,
one of Annihilation was one of the worst live action transition video game movies, maybe of all time. Just
oh, wow.
it was bad.
I think
I don't
I heard that. I
like
think that's part of the reason I wasn't interested.
yeah. So part two, like Mortal Kombat Annihilation, back in like 90, what was that, Roman, 97, something like that, I
Yeah,
think.
about 97, 98.
So that one's said to be one of the worst of all time. And then they rebooted it in 2021, and they got it right.
Oh, wow.
And it's I mean it's violent, because
Yeah,
because now it's not PG-13, it's a it's
right,
R-rated
right.
shit. So like you talking about how they were going to transition into these things that you were talking about, they do it.
I mean, modern technology moves faster than us, and so I'm sure they can now. I'm sure they can depict things on screen that in the 90s weren't even fathomable, much less we're going to pass FCC muster. Do you know what I mean? To even
Mhm.
allow them to do it. We're at a different place now. So, all right, you got me. I'm going to go check them out.
Check them out, man. If it's a failure, you could tell me that I failed you, man. But
I mean,
I
for
think
me, it's as much about the acting and the story as it is about the transition and the violence. So I need all of that. If it's
and
got all of that,
and that's the thing. There is story.
yeah,
Like it start like, I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it, because
I
I
haven't
want
seen
you
it.
to check it out.
I'll go check it out.
But there's definitely story leading into things. So now the trailer I saw for Street Fighter,
Yeah,
I don't know where that's gonna go though,
yeah,
because I don't really know where the story's gonna go in that. But I mean, I think it's got to do better than the first attempt,
yeah,
because the first Street Fighter movie was a bombshell. Like it
yeah,
was
Yeah.
like bad. Even though they had star power there too. Like this one
yep,
has star power, too. They have a lot of stars in the new Street Fighter movie. And yeah, it could be great. It could be great. I like who they have playing Ryu. Um, actually, I like a lot of the characters they
Okay.
picked. I think 50 Cent playing Balrog is
Oh
awesome.
wow.
Yeah, he's got his hair done and everything. Like it's crazy. Yeah,
Ah,
50 Cent's face with Balrog's haircut is yeah, it's a thing.
It'd be
you know,
interesting.
M. Bison at some point was Mike Tyson. Did you guys
Yeah,
know that? Look it up.
yeah.
He was
Really?
connected to Mike Tyson and inspired by Mike Tyson, but they didn't think that would fly on the transition. So that's when he became M. Bison and not M. Tyson. Go check it out.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading
You
that.
knew that? I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. So, um, I know you've done a ton of other things. We focused on these, but do you have a favorite character that you do voice in the gaming world? Aside from M Bison, because we already spoke on that.
You know who I really like is X Death from the Final Fantasy series. And
Oh, okay.
it's less about, I mean, and that was Dissidia and Duodec, but it's less about his voice per se, but the idea that a character has overcome death and his fear of death and uses that as a weapon to intimidate other people because he's kind of like, I'm over it. Like, you can't mess with me. Do you know what I mean? And that was a lot of fun to sort of dive into and to be able to to visit that more than once and have a couple of bites at the apple at X Death. And even the character, he's not quite human. He's like, looks like he's got spires and stuff going out of his head and he has different colors. But the stuff that he says, kind of like M. Bison, is just the ultimate I got you. Like, you cannot mess with me. And there was something about that that really had a wonderful appeal for me. Ex
Hmm.
death. Like, I'm over it. I'm past that point. So that's not something you can scare me with, intimidate me with, threaten me with. Like, I got you. And then he had just incredible powers to be able to defeat these other enemies. And I think kids were playing it on the Switch or something, but it did okay for a little while. That Final Fantasy series, it was just fun to do.
That's what's up, man. Do you like fantasy type games? I mean, I saw you were in you know, World of Warcraft a little
Yeah,
bit, StarCraft.
yeah,
Do you like fantasy games like as far as like the genre?
I do. I mean, I like the fighting games because they're so accessible and so popular. But as an actor, the fantasy games offer a little more depth and a little more rich manipulation to be able to play with people and do things that you might not ordinarily do. I'm sorry, that's my agent texting me about an audition. Um, so yeah, I do like the fantasy games, and there's somewhere floating on the internet a skit with James Corbin, the British guy who had a talk show for a little
Oh
while.
yeah.
Hmm.
He did a skit that was a spinoff on the Game of Thrones, and he had the Kardashian as the sister, but he hired a bunch of actors to come in and sit around this table like they do at the Game of Thrones. And so I'm sitting around this table as like the dude with the gray dreadlocks. And it's just fun being in that. I mean, with a Shakespeare background, yeah, I love the classical stuff. I love the stuff that's more fantasy. And even watching some of the stuff that I find myself watching, there was some program called Wheel of Time, and it was like a series, and it was just about this whole fantasy world. And man, I love that stuff. It's a great escape. that's not just about violence and taking over the world, but all the other subtleties and the innuendo and the relationships and the things that go on there that interest me creatively, as a voice actor. That I get to bring all these layers. I mean, I'm trying to bring layers to everything, but some of that fantasy stuff has all of this other stuff already built in, and that's awesome to be able to do.
Yeah, man. Roman, you got something?
Yeah, what are some of your methods for maintaining your voice and keeping that clear sound? Is there a specific like anything specific that
You
you do for
know,
that?
when I was younger, I really took good care of my voice because I was concerned. So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd do these breathing exercises and these vocal exercises. And you can lay on your back so you can hear what you really sound like, particularly if you've got a solid wood floor. But it's
Mm.
really about the entire instrument. So you've got to keep the body moving. You would think that it's just about sitting in one place and doing the
Yeah.
voice, but the body is so integrated and connected to the voice that for me, drumming or taking a walk, all of that helps to. So I'm not up in the morning, la 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 blah 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 blah. I'm not doing that anymore. I mean, I'm just past that point in my career. Um, because the fighting games, those battle scenes can be brutal on your voice. So if you're
Yeah.
in the studio for 4 hours at a time and you've got one fight after another, and then you've got a big blow and a kick and then a medium kick and then a death kick and then a little kick, and then you're receiving a blow and then you're receiving a big kick and then a medium kick and a death kick, that can be taxing. So you take care of yourself before you get there. I don't think, this is my opinion. I don't think you show up there and then you're in trouble and then you go, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got to have some remedy. Although they do have some remedies. I don't have it back here in my studio now, but they have, the Japanese in particular have like the Japanese syrup. And for guys that are in the booth that wear their voices out, they take this syrup that tastes like licorice and some other stuff that's in there, and it is a miracle worker. It
Oh,
soothes and coats the. I wish I knew, but it doesn't even have an English name for it. I think all the writing is in Japanese, but it's
Mm.
a dark bottle, and you can find that stuff online. You can find it on Amazon, but in the major studios where they know you're going to be doing those battle scenes, they have it there for you in case you ever need it. There's also something else that's very African called a licorice root. And so you can chew on that licorice root and it releases what tastes like cinnamon, and licorice. And it also is very good at coating the throat, because ultimately what happens is the vocal cords become worn from being overused and they don't vibrate at the same rate that they do when you're fresh, and so you find a way to like restore them. Before I found out about this Japanese honey, it was, some herbal tea called throat coat,
Yep.
and you can
I
get
use
it
that.
at the store. You get the throat coat and it's got the licorice in it. And I would put a little honey and a little lemon in it. Honey to help coat it and lemon to help sort of strip some of the impurities. But you just learn to take care of your voice. And fortunately for me, at 17, going on tour and sometimes doing 6, 8 shows a week, you better figure something out, because if you get worn out, then there's somebody waiting to take your job. And so I've been at it for a long time. Like we say in Compton, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. So I'm not at a point where I've worn my voice out. I'm taking care of it regularly, not with exercising my vocal cords, but with being active with my whole body.
Yeah, man.
that's awesome.
Yeah, because I do about 75 shows a year on average. Like I tour music all over the place, and I do the throat coat, and I got this other thing actually that reminds me of what you're talking about, the like the Japanese tea or whatever.
You know, I'm gonna go get it for you. Hold on, I'm gonna go so you can see what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, man. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Keep asking for their methods on their voice acting methods, or just things to kind of help
Yeah.
protect them and
Yeah,
stuff.
man.
And that's yeah, I remember you talking about the throat coat tea on the last one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, this is the stuff. It's called Ninjom Pa Koa herbal formula. This
Oh,
is the stuff. This stuff right
oh,
here, it's amazing. I've seen people in the studio that feel like they have lost it and that there's nothing but air because those vocal cords are so scorched that they can hardly get out the sounds that they need to. And they take a little of this, and some of them just take a spoonful. Just they don't mix it in tea, but this is Ninjom Pe Pao Ko. I don't know what that is, but this is the miracle drug right here, and it's herbal. It's not even chemical. It's all herbs, but it will restore. I was in a show. In addition to Shakespeare, there's a black playwright named oh my God, don't my ring's black bottom. Oh man, I've just been doing August Wilson, and I was in a show with an actor, and he was playing the lead in an August Wilson play, which is heavy on language and rhetoric, like Shakespeare, only it comes from a black perspective. August Wilson wrote 10 plays, one for every decade of the 20th century about black folks, the 10s, the 20s, the 30s, all the way up through the 90s. And opening night, the kid playing the lead, he's not a kid, he's a grown man, but he's younger than me, young enough to be my son. He went out on stage for the very first scene. He was yelling about some watermelons. We were doing piano lesson, and I heard his voice go like, whoosh, and then you're like, and we had a long run. This was at the very beginning,
Mm.
but I put him on this and that licorice root, and be quiet when you're not here. But that's an example of a lack of experience in terms of what you've got to do to take care of yourself before you get. But that stuff right there, I this is the bomb. This is the bomb diggity. It's
Yeah,
the
you might.
shit's it.
Yeah, you might have to snap a picture and send it to me, bro, because so I've been using this stuff called, it's like Vocal 37 or whatever, and it's like a
Yeah,
combination of it's like drops, and it works wonders. Like I do it before every show. I'd even do it sometimes before recording, but it's like a combination of like slippery elm, licorice root,
yeah.
and some other things in there. But I'm curious on that. So you might have to
Well, you
hook.
recorded it, so you got it. I held it up to your
Yeah,
camera.
it's like I don't know if, all right, I'm gonna try to
Okay,
get
okay.
the clear vision of it.
Ninjom Pe Pa Koa herbal
yeah.
formula, but you can find it on Amazon.
Okay. I'm gonna type it. I'm gonna type it.
You can definitely find it on Amazon. And they'll send it to you. They'll ship it to you directly from China, and it's not even, or China or Japan, but it's not even that expensive.
That's what's up, man.
It's like $20, $40. I think you're gonna get two of those bottles, which would last you a long time because you're only having a spoonful at a time.
Yeah, yeah. When you do the, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but when you do the recordings for, um, any of the fighter parts, do you ever do them in studio with other people, or is it all just separate? Like when you guys did like the Tekken versus Street Fighter, like were you
Uh-huh.
in studio with
No,
the Tekken actors? It was just
no.
all separate.
So somebody gets the advantage of recording their stuff first, and then you're responding to what they did. And in some instances, they don't want you responding because, in theory, you don't know what they're going to do. So you're only concerned about your end of it. So I've not for a video game, not for an animated film, not for cartoons have I ever been in the studio with somebody else sort of going back and forth.
Mm.
So for Wreck-It Ralph, for example, they'd have John C. Reilly. His stuff would already be recorded. So by the time you go in, you're listening to what he just said and you're talking as if he's there, but you're not in the studio with the other actor. Most of the time, that booth is relatively small. At most, at least my experience has been, there's two people at most. I've never been in a situation where everybody's sitting. We do that in live theater. We do that in what they call stage readings. We do that enough. But for video games and animation, rarely, if ever, is there anybody there, which is part of the magic for you as a voice actor to imagine all of the other stuff that's going on. Because at times, I've had to do characters that I didn't have a physical picture of, or there was no voice print and they had one image. They were like, this is what we think we want him to look like. And then what do you make that sound like? Which is exciting for you to like create a voice print for a character that's brand new or that's never been done before. But nah, it's great to grow up with a vivid imagination to get into this business, because you can, and as an actor, you can imagine, because even on film, on camera, sometimes the other actor's not on camera with you. He may be off, or he may not be there at all, and you have somebody else just reading the lines, and you're giving your all. And so you develop that muscle of creating a world for yourself and then responding to it. And we describe it as having real responses to imaginary circumstances. So you're creating the circumstances, but then once you, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what you imagine. So your emotional response would be the same, just like you have a dream. It doesn't know it's dreaming. Do you know what I mean? And if it scares you or if it makes you laugh, it just does. So we learn as actors to access that part of ourselves that allows us to respond to imaginary circumstances.
Yeah, man. Is there a franchise of gaming that you have a dream of playing a part in?
What's the one? Oh, the kids are all playing now. My students are playing, and I was like, "Hey, how come I didn't get to do that one?" But I didn't pursue it. I didn't have my people pursue it. Fortnite.
Oh,
I was gonna say that too.
I play the shit out of Fortnite actually with my daughters. We play, and my cousins.
And I know a couple of actors who are in the Fortnite. There's another black actor, voice actor with dreads. I'm gonna forget his name right now. I can see him in my mind's eye, but he works all the time. And I know he was doing Fortnite, and I was a bit envious, just because it was so popular and so many people. It's like, how did I not get an opportunity or an offer or a job in that one? But that one, that's the only. And then I wanted to do something. This may sound crazy, but that what's the one where they're driving San Andreas and they
Grand Theft
GTA.
Auto.
yes, yes. I think
Yep.
that would be a
Yeah.
fun one to have some even some small voices in. But Fortnite for sure. It was like, how did I miss that train? How did I, not get in on that when the getting was good? And because so many people are playing it, and so my kids now, they were like, "Are you on Fortnite?" It's like, I go, "No." They go, "Oh, okay."
They actually
Okay.
recently just added two of my favorite characters of all time. They just added the skins for um Jules and Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction, like Samuel and
Oh
John
wow.
Travolta, and like you could play as them. I have both of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's crazy how far that game has come. Like they have all the Street Fighter characters in there like as skins. They have all the
Oh
Mortal
wow.
Kombat characters in there as skins.
Yeah.
I don't know how the
I'm
licensing all works, but like they
yeah.
obviously have a shit ton of money
They
to where they
do,
can buy licensing for
clearly.
everything.
Clearly.
Yeah. But yeah, and I actually heard just today that Grand Theft Auto 6 got delayed again.
Yeah, I heard about that one
Oh,
too.
I didn't
Not
hear
sure what
that.
the story was or what was going on there, but yeah, that those two, I just don't know how I missed the boat on those. I don't know how I missed the train because those are two that I would love to have done and would still love to do, especially that Fortnite. It's just so much going on.
Yeah.
And, when you think about them, we were kids growing up, the games had a finite end. Like
Yeah.
you would get to the last. I remember playing something called Double Dragon, where there was really
Oh
no
yeah.
talking, but you could have a partner, and you could just. But once you got to the end, and you figured out how to sort of defeat it and get past there, that was it. It was over.
Hmm.
Um, and now it's like, oh no, they can just go on and have literally worlds without end. I have a VR goggle things, and even in that, there's certain places you can go, and we're used to having a finite world where you go to a certain number of rooms or places, and then it's over. You like hit the wall, but they just keep expanding, and you could play these things forever and not finish them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
It can be. It can be.
Roman, you got one last question for Gerald, man?
Oh, just curious what food M. Bison couldn't live without.
It's funny because
That's
my last question
that's
was
a
food.
great question. I think it's steak tartare. I think the idea of like consuming uh, almost raw meat, like a
Mm.
chunk of red, bloody flesh that he was just like, yeah. I think that for me, I think that's one that he's like, I gotta have me some of that.
Oh, you're talking about the actual. I meant you, but
Oh, me.
yeah.
Oh,
I was
me.
just
I would never
yeah.
eat
You're M. Bison.
I would
Yeah.
never eat the raw meat.
It confused me for a second. I thought it was you. I was like, oh wow.
Two
He was giving you the
things.
characters.
Yeah.
He was in
You
character
asked
just now.
about M.
I know.
Bison, man.
Yeah, I
Um,
know.
Two things. One, I have an ice cream fever. I like this Haagen-Dazs vanilla Swiss almond, and it's just like got Swiss dark chocolate covering almonds inside a beautiful. And then I could not live without gumbo, and I'm getting ready to make some gumbo for the kids.
I love gumbo.
My folks are from South Carolina, so it's a little different than what's coming out of New Orleans, but it's still like a dark roux, and there's shrimp, and there's crab, and there's hot links, and
Oh
there's
yeah,
sausage, and there's chicken, and there. Oh my God!
sounds
If you
delicious.
took that off the planet, I would have a hard time. I love me some gumbo. I watch people, and I cook it, and it takes like really kind of takes a couple of days to get all the stuff to come together. But then when you see people eating it, they're standing over a trash can, like sucking the juice out of crab legs, like, and you know that it is real soul food. It's food for the soul. So I couldn't be on the planet if they got rid of gumbo.
All right,
That's what's
awesome.
up, man. I got one last thing. It's kind of this was like two different things. So it's like I wanted you to tell me if you had a favorite M Bison line, if you could do that, and also if since I've actually never been to Compton myself, I wanted to know if there is a go-to because I'm a foodie. If there's a go-to
Okay.
restaurant in Compton that I would need to go to.
So Compton's changing a lot. But in terms of M Bison, the classic line, and when I go in the studio and they're looking for how do we find M Bison, and of course they will play some references for me, but the one that just gets me there because to me it says everything about who he is He says, beware the mighty bison. I mean, that's everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, like, don't mess with me. I'm telling you right now, don't mess with me. I went to a restaurant recently when I was in Compton. I was there with my mom for Mother's Day, and there's a new soul food spot that actually had gumbo. It's called Let's Eat.
Mm.
And I think it's on Compton Boulevard. Now remember, Compton is not that big. It's only 5 miles wide and 7 miles long. When you think about all the stuff that comes out of Compton being a place that's really that small and that compact, a lot of places have come and gone. And Bledsoe's, he's a dude from Texas who came to Compton and opened up a barbecue restaurant. And then he got so big that like he moved to Beverly Hills or Hollywood or someplace else. I don't know that Bledsoe's is still in Compton anymore, but that's where he built his business. And Guy Fiero came with the diners, drive-ins, and dives, and like helped to put him on the map. And then he wrote a couple books. But the new spot is called Let's Eat, and it's on Compton Boulevard. And went in there. I just saw it on Facebook. Somebody was like, "Go check it out." So I told my mom, "Let's roll through there and check it out." And it's a young chef brother who established this restaurant and was looking for other places to put it. And he's not from Compton, but he's from South Central. And he's got pictures all over the walls of murals of black folks that came out of Compton that went on to do great things. There's a football player too. I can't think. He played for Seattle when they won the championship. He has dreads. His name escapes me, but he's from Compton too. But check out Let's Eat and tell the chef that G sent you.
That's dope, man. Real quick before I do the outro, did you go to a cool place to eat when you were at the Midwest Gaming Classic in Milwaukee?
I didn't. I went right down the street to some sort of like a big marketplace that had a bunch of different.
The public market. Yeah,
the public market, and I wound up getting like hot wings, and they were pretty good. I think one night I had something else, but no, I didn't go to any. I thought about it, but I didn't go to any place.
I was just curious. Curious.
I did go to the casino when I was there, though. I didn't.
Potawatomi?
Yes.
What up, man?
And now they're blowing up my email, sending me stuff like, I don't live there.
You know, Snoop Dogg played there at their music venue outside.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he played there. Well, I think that was that last year, year before, or something?
Yeah, I think so.
It was either last year or the year before.
He's getting the closest one to me here is Yamava, and everybody plays there. I just saw Trevor Noah there, and Andre Bocelli, and Snoop is coming, and Mary J was there, and Mike Epps was there. It's the new thing. These Indian gaming casinos are big draws. You have enough people there. They have enough people. They have enough money to pay these huge headliners to come in there and do shows. I'll just say this and try not to get political, but I just wish they would let the black folks have something. They let the Native Americans have the casinos in part for reparations for what they took from them, and let them have their own space. And then they legalized marijuana, but locked the brothers out who built the marijuana industry, particularly in California. And if they had a record, they couldn't own one. They couldn't go into one. Some of them couldn't even work in one. So that's just my 2 bits. I wish they would let us have something back. That's all. I'm so grateful for Dr. Dre for putting that studio at the high school in Compton.
Yeah.
And they've got a big picture of him on the outside. That the whole school's been redone, but that's the centerpiece. It's a brand new state-of-the-art recording studio for high school students.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been super dope, man. I appreciate you to the fullest. Hopefully, if I'm ever out in your area and you're on the drums, I'm gonna kick a freestyle for you, man. It's gonna have to happen. But,
I take those drums everywhere I go. I play for several people freestyling, but if you get to LA, you holla at me. I got you. I got a place for you.
Yeah, man, that'll be dope, man. Well, yeah, this has been Crack the Code, where we level up the conversation. I am Tayamu Deku. That is Roman, and tonight we had special guest Gerald C. Rivers, and we appreciate you to the fullest, man. Thank you for being a part of it, and we will be in touch and talk to you soon, man.
All good, bro. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you again.
Peace.
Peace.
And you're watching Crack the Code. Boom shakalaka.